I can't thank the Carl Sagan Institute and Lisa Kaltenegger and Gillis Lowry and all of the people who made today possible enough. Talking about Carl is one of my favorite things to do, thinking about him. I am the very lucky recipient of love for Carl from around the whole planet. A day doesn't go by when someone doesn't reach out to me and tell me, as was just said today in John's lovely introduction, that their life was affected by something that Carl did, that the whole trajectory of their life was enhanced and broadened by something Carl did. The topic of my little brief talk today is the gift Carl gave us. And I know I declare my bias beforehand. It's a very great one. But when I think of Carl, I think of his life as a masterpiece of citizenship, of a person who dreamed of becoming a citizen of the cosmos, but who was first and foremost a citizen of Earth. I think of the things that he did that were not promoted and that were not talked about. I think of his trips to the immigration and naturalization ceremonies to inspire new citizens to question authority. I think of his love of the Bill of Rights and why he felt so strongly that it was one of the two greatest error-correcting mechanisms humans had ever devised. The other one was the methodology of the science. And he loved science and he loved the Bill of Rights because he thought, here, as a species, we know our tendency to dominance hierarchies. We know our tendency to push others of our own species around. The Bill of Rights is that error-correcting mechanism that prevents the alpha male or whoever wishes to dominate from hurting those of us who have the least power. And that is why Carl would go where the people were to spread the message of science. He believed that the more that we knew of the wondrous universe revealed by science, the more we would feel a sense of humility about the fact that our story is 4.5 billion years long, that we are all links in the chain of generations. And that chain of generations links us to every living thing on earth. And most of all, that we are not the children of a chronically disappointed parent, but instead star stuff, formed in the fiery hearts of distant stars, every one of us equally, and all life equally, and that is a source of wonder and awe. And what is kind of sad but meaningful is that the only people who really gave him a hard time about this were other scientists. You know, the community of science was somehow offended that science was not going to continue to be an elite priesthood for a tiny few. But Carl really loved the concept of democracy. And as he warned many times on this campus and all over the world, to have a civilization dependent on science and high technology and to make it so that only a tiny few could understand how it worked was a recipe for catastrophe. And when I think of the demon-haunted world, I have to say, I think of this past week. But life is the greatest writer of all, because here we are in the aftermath of what was for many of us a source of heartache, celebrating someone whose life exemplifies what we need to become in order to endure. One of the things Carl would do was to speak to the teachers of the public schools of Tompkins County on the night before school would begin. And he would tell them, and speaking from the heart, he really meant it, what a sacred undertaking they were participating in, to have this lever arm on the future, to be able to fan that spark of curiosity, those little children who are perpetually asking why, to honor their questions and to make them lifelong questioners, searchers, like the generations of science. And it's that degree of citizenship that I ask all of you to summon up in yourself if you, like me, have had a tough week. And that is to reach out. I see the physics bus outside the Space Sciences building parking lot. And I think, yes, that is what we need. That is exactly what we need. We need to reach out and we need to embrace our fellow citizens. And whatever gifts we have, whatever knowledge we have, whatever strengths we have, we need to share them. Because that's exactly what Carl would be doing. He was derided for going on the Tonight Show and writing for Parade magazine, the Sunday supplement that went into the nation's newspapers. Why did he do that? Why did we make Cosmos a television show? Because we wanted to reach each and every person on Earth, because this birthright, this little picture of the universe that we have been able to assemble, belongs to everyone. And anyone who has any degree, even the tiniest understanding of how powerful it is, can experience a moment of human self-esteem, which is what we need now more than ever before. I'd just like to close with a thought about why I think Carl, who was completely human, nothing supernatural about him, all of the foibles that we all have, but why was he so special? I think of the fact that when the Voyager mission was being planned, Carl was in those meetings talking about the mission trajectories with the scientists and engineers, plotting the course of Voyager, thinking of what planetary and what rendezvous with the many moons of the outer solar system, how they could maximize and see as many worlds for the first time up close. And then when the data came in and the pictures came in from the outer solar system, Carl was upstairs at JPL with the imaging team. And he was contributing to the analysis of what that data and those pictures meant, what they were learning for the first time about these worlds. And then in between the planetary encounters that would take place every 2 years or 3 years, Carl was going to Washington, D.C. and pleading with the NASA administrator that Voyager 1 would take one last picture after all the pictures were taken, that Voyager 1 would look homeward and see our world and the worlds of the sun as we had never seen them before. Not the frame-filling Apollo vision, which in itself was a sea change for our civilization. Not that Earth filling the screen, but the one pixel Earth. And without fail, they would say to him, Carl, what's the scientific virtue of seeing the Earth as a single dot? You know, it'll fry the cameras if we look back towards the sun. This is after all the pictures were taken. They said no to him for 9 years, but he never gave up. And ultimately, he succeeded in seeing our world as it really is. Tiny, fragile, tiny, a small, tiny world. And it was Carl who could do all those other things and then be the person who could write about it in such a way that he could pierce the frozen sea inside of us and make us look in wonder at ourselves and each other and realize how pathetic and how futile our conflicts are in the face of the vastness of space and time. Well, more about that later. But I just want to say that I know that Carl would be so thrilled that you came today, and that so many people around this little planet care so deeply for him. I plan to use the inspiration of spending 20 years with him and knowing that all the love that he received was really, if every one of those people had known him the way his family did, they would be even more in awe of him as a human being, as a father, as a husband, as a son, as a friend. So thank you. Your love of Carl could not be better placed. And I'm so excited to hear the rest of this program and the new knowledge that the Carl Sagan Institute and his friends have assembled. He would have loved this. He would have loved the research aspect of it, but he also would have loved its efforts at public outreach, at connecting with as many people as possible.